This is a brilliant question, because as you speak, next week or so, we're going to meet the business community. The business community in South Africa, and Johannesburg in particular, I think you have Standard Bank that has a huge partnership with Chinese Bank. We have NASPA's, the 10 cents issue. We have, as I've listed, a number of Chinese enterprises located in Johannesburg. We have China Development Bank right protruding center, and as you can see, we are in discussions with China Development Bank that it is more than willing to host some of our students, postgraduate students, to do internship right there or do research. But we have also have endless delegations that go to China, whether it's political parties, with business community, whether individual enterprise or business people who want to learn and understand the Chinese culture, Chinese language, to effectively deal with their business. We foresee ourselves, we don't have the capacity at the moment, but would like to grow that. We could consult. They can come here, they make this their home through our Chinese teachers, teach them in a real business setting, whether corporate or tourism. How do you communicate in those situations in China? And if need be, if they are going on a bigger, longer trip to China, we could assist them with someone at a price, obviously, to navigate a complex Chinese environment. I think you're quite aware the Chinese culture differs from a Western, and we as Africans are very Western given our history. Within China, you just don't strike a deal. You have to build a friendship. There are a lot of nuances in these relationships, and therefore I think we would want to better give best excellent service to South African business community, to ensure that they understand their Chinese counterparts, and this relationship eliminates conflicts. My co-director is going to speak for himself. For instance, he's a linguistic person, an expert in translation. Most of Chinese documents are in Chinese, or our documents are in English. To what extent can we then understand certain documents? I think we also need people who can translate, and it's a service that we would want to assist our business community in negotiations, how to negotiate with the Chinese. We would either prepare the teams or be part to that negotiating team in which we then assist. And therefore, University of Johannesburg would want to play that critical catalytic role in facilitating these issues. I think our relation, as I said, we as South Africans and Africans of all races and creed are very much Western. What we know through language and power of language and culture, at times we tend to be even more British than British themselves. It becomes an issue or a phenomenon, the Chinese phenomenon, which has shocked the world. And what comes with it, it's not only prejudice, but it comes also with fear, your phobia that comes with it. It's not just the Chinese phenomena, other phenomena in global history. And I think the main reason being that the world that we know has always been Western in dimension. from a philosophy, from everything that we know. And therefore, the rapid rise of China, it changes the world that we know. And this in itself brings fear from within ourselves, fear of the other, as well as fear from some of our traditional partners, mainly from West, that tend to think that we don't know what we want as a people, and therefore they know us more than we know ourselves. And they need to choose for us who should be our friends and how should we interact with these people. And that brings a quite disturbing phenomena, equally so. That is patronizing, demeaning, disrespectful, in which the narrative that is driven from the West is that Africans are too weak, therefore Africa needs the West as it relates to China. But having said that, we understand those fears, we understand the context, but we are saying perhaps that it comes about due to lack of interaction and human interaction, people to people, understanding of that language and culture, and move away from these perceptions and bring a dosage of reality. And that reality comes when real people meet, when real people talk, as we do with other cultures, and find areas of convergence with Chinese and areas of divergence with Chinese that we need to do. But Africans and South Africans should be allowed to do that on their own without being aided by anyone else. Now comes the issue of language, and it's an emotive issue, and one can understand. There are huge debate. We, as the University of Johannesburg Confucius Institute, are not part to that debate, are not part to those arrangements. These arrangements are at a level of state to state. What it means is that the South African state and the Chinese state have entered an agreement to facilitate language. However, where we come in is to assist our provincial government. We haven't entered in any agreement as yet, but there might be arrangements given the advantage that we have Chinese teachers. To what extent can we train some of South African government teachers to teach Mandarin? And to what extent can we assist in terms of facilitating some of these discussions? I think we are more than willing to assist in that regard. It's also your typical South African debate. I can tell you, at the moment we are teaching Mandarin at St. John's, one of the most well-stable school. We're rushing to a meeting. We're going to reach a school right here close. And quite a number of your upper middle class schools are keen to establish Mandarin classes as non-enforceable. Students choose as much as they choose for Greek, French, Germany, and all other languages, Zulu and local languages. Now the debate goes in now to poorer schools, and this is my own personal interpretation, where I find a bit of unfairness, and perhaps it's the lack of knowledge in society, where there isn't much work being done to explain properly. Firstly, Mandarin, even at a government-to-government level, introducing of Mandarin in government schools in South Africa, it's not a must. Students are not forced to learn Mandarin. Those who choose, like in your privileged schools, who choose a foreign language, would then choose that. Yes, mother tongue is critical, and that has to be developed, and that should be the priority of all schools. One cannot argue with that debate. But one have issues when it comes to the view that don't even introduce it, because it is going to distract us from learning your mother tongue. I find that a defeatist kind of argument and an unfair for poor schools who are given a golden opportunity by their own government and a foreign government that is more than willing to fund. If Germans do the same in our public schools, I would equally support it. If the French do the same, because if we face it, French is quite big in Africa. With French, you'll go far. And one would argue with Mandarin, you'll also strike better opportunity at the level of employment and other activities, exploring other cultures and literature. And therefore, I think more work by the media, more work by government, more work by us as an institute and people on the ground to understand the dynamics of this debate and ensure that we don't deprive the poorest of poor schools to have an extra non-enforceable language that they can learn at their own leisure time. And that's my view, that in future, if time allows and resources, we would want to kickstart dialogues around the very same issue where we invite the media so that it is aired fairly with the clear views, opposing views, given chance to speak with an aim of making our society understand this dynamic so that an element of ignorance is taken out of this debate. And people argue knowing what this is all about and why it is being done.